I'll pick on 2 points that I'll, in my opening remarks, in the short period that I have. First is the meanings that we get from the opening of the NATO liaison office in Jordan. From the NATO perspective, I do believe that this shows a new commitment and engagement by NATO with its southern partners, forging the already going and continuous relations and cooperation frameworks between the alliance and the region. And so it is a sign in the right direction that NATO should focus more on that part of the world or that region. As to Jordan, this comes as no surprise. Jordan, for the last 3 decades, had a very deep-rooted relationship with NATO. Jordan has been very active in the Mediterranean dialogue over the past 30 years. I do remember during my tenure, we signed a strategic cooperation agreement at the time. We also managed to create trust funds to clear mines in Jordan at the time. So the country has always engaged in a very good relationship with NATO. But mostly I do believe that also this is a testimony about the Jordanian role. Jordan is a beacon of stability in terms of regional and global security. It has been a long-time champion in fighting transnational threats, including extremism and terrorism. So it comes as no surprise that this happens. I do believe that the opening of the office will deepen the political dialogue between Jordan and probably other Arab countries and the alliance. And it will open the door for more cooperation programs, whether it was in terms of seminars or lectures, probably issues that we need to focus on include, obviously, terrorism and security is at the core of NATO speciality, but we have to look at issues like climate change and civil emergency planning, public diplomacy, AI. I think that these topics also should be used throughout, the opening of the office or the liaison office in Jordan. So it's promising, and I have high hopes for that, and this is a step in the right direction. Now, the other topic that I'm going to tackle is that which I was asked to tackle as part of the session is that, is the South should not be perceived as a heterogeneous entity for which it is difficult to find solutions and resources. How to change this narrative? And then how do we reconcile discourse with realities? The question that I would like to ask to start with, in the eyes of NATO, how do you define the South, and then how do you consider it, whether it is homogeneous or heterogeneous? If you look at it in the context of Arab countries only, it is homogeneous. It is not heterogeneous. If you look at it including Israel, I tell you it is heterogeneous, and I'll tell you why in a moment. If you go 50 years ago, we talk about actions that took place over the past 50 years. Since the 1970 wars that took place between the Arabs and Israel, the Arab countries opted and refrained from engaging in a hostile, military, war-oriented actions against Israel. And they have maintained the UN Charter obligations, United Nations Charter obligations, United Nations resolutions. They have also embarked on, of course, they have always upheld international law, and they have embarked on trying to find a solution with the Israeli part on amicable basis, and this is why we had the peace process launched some 30 years ago, culminating eventually that Egypt and my country, Jordan, signed a peace accord with Israel. And of course, with the hope that we will have an end to the peace process in general by having a Palestinian state. On the other side, what has Israel done over the past 50 years? It has negated international law. It has violated international law. It has violated its obligations under the United Nations General Assembly resolutions and resolutions in general on the conflict in the region. It has derailed the peace process, and eventually, over the past year, as we have witnessed, it has committed genocide crimes against the Palestinians in Gaza. It has also committed crimes or war crimes against Lebanon, as we've seen recently. So the question comes back to is the region, is it a heterogeneous or homogeneous entity? And if we look at the two values, I cannot see it other than being heterogeneous. The question becomes then, and if I also may add to all of this, is that if there are also intentions by the Israelis to put Jordan in a complicated situation in the future, this will not be just detrimental to Jordan, but also it will be detrimental to Israel itself and also to your interest at NATO and at the EU. And I promise you that it will mushroom more extremism and radicalism in the region. So the question is, how do we reconcile discourse with reality, the reality that I have just, demonstrated to you? I think it's very simple. It's by bringing and making Israel accountable again and under scrutiny. Israel cannot be above the law, cannot be above UN Charter. It has to be back on track, and it has to uphold its international obligations. Until that happens, and when that happens, then all the objectives of the initiatives of NATO, including the opening of the office in Amman and other cooperation activities, will not, I'm afraid, will not fulfill its full goals and ambitions as NATO perceives. I'll end it here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those remarks, and I think that's so vital about underscoring the importance. Thank you. Please.
You want me to answer this in 1 minute?
Yeah, of course.
You see, this is, Ken, how you bring the 30,000 feet level question to the nitty-gritty matters, the large-scale policies and what we need to achieve into the activities that your organization is doing. Look, I don't think that in your dialogue you are, I think that you are more technical focused on issues that have to do with AI and the regulatory framework and, how to forge more cooperation between the members of the United Nations acting in this domain. However, if I want to bring this to the conflict and our region, in order for us to facilitate your work and have it fully implemented with all the parties buying in, its value credibility that has been tarnished in the eyes of the people on the southern flank of, or on the southern rim of the Mediterranean. We have an issue of credibility now because we've been always, spoken to about values, about human rights, about democratic rights, about women's rights, Everything, that has been nurtured to us and promoted to us by the West has been tarnished over the past year or two. So basically now I'm telling you how people think in my region. So don't preach me again about all the values that you've been telling us over the past 50, 60 years. And if you want to regain this value system, then you need to address the issues. And addressing the issues, I go up again, 30,000 feet level, even going back to the issue of, Red Sea and Maritime. Why do we have Houthis? Why do we have problems here and there and, Iran and, the Arab countries? And it goes back to one cause. And we're always shedding away, not looking at it. It's like the elephant in the room, and nobody is addressing it. It is the Arab-Israeli conflict. And is a problem with the Arabs? I tell you, not because I am an Arab. It is not with the Arabs. It is with the Israelis themselves. They do not want to have a solution. And this is what complicates all the initiatives that the UN, such as your very respectable organization, is doing.
Thank you. And I think value